"You're too stubborn for your own good," my wife Clara said one night, smiling sweetly, but there was something sharp under her words. At the time, I laughed it off. I thought she meant it like a compliment. That stubbornness had carried me through a rough childhood, college night shifts, and building my marketing firm from scratch. I had no idea that same stubbornness would almost cost me my life. My name's Aaron Monroe. I'm 36 years old, and this is the story of how trusting the wrong person nearly destroyed everything I worked for, and how I learned sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people sitting closest to you. It all started in a place that should have felt safe, my own home in Charleston, South Carolina. Clara and I had been married for 5 years. She was everything I thought I wanted: graceful, witty, endlessly supportive, at least on the surface. We built a comfortable life. A cozy house with a wraparound porch, 2 golden retrievers who ruled the backyard, weekend getaways to Asheville or Savannah when business was slow. To anyone looking from the outside, we were the picture of success. But if you lived inside our home, if you paid close attention, you might have seen it. The small dismissive comments. The way Clara would take a playful jab at my choices, then laugh it off. The way her smile sometimes tightened when I talked about landing a new client or expanding the business. I told myself it was normal. Marriage was about compromise, right? About balancing 2 lives, 2 ambitions. Still, that Sunday morning stands out clear as day in my memory. It was one of those golden spring days, the kind Charleston is famous for. Birdsong, soft breezes, sunlight dripping through the oaks. Clara insisted on making breakfast. "I owe you," she said, pressing a kiss to my temple, "for working so hard this week." She brought me a steaming cup of coffee, pancakes stacked high, crisp bacon on the side. And as soon as I took a sip, I knew something was wrong. The coffee tasted metallic. Not burnt, not overbrewed, metallic. It clung to the back of my throat, made my stomach twist in a way I couldn't explain. Clara smiled brightly across the table. "Drink up, babe," she said. "Big day today." I set the cup down, my hand steady, even as alarm bells started screaming in my head. The big day she was talking about, it wasn't a birthday or an anniversary. It was a day I was supposed to meet the regional director of a Fortune 500 company, a deal that could double the size of my firm, a deal I'd been preparing for months. I stared down at the coffee, at the woman I had built my life around, and for the first time, I wondered if I really knew her at all. I didn't say anything right away, just pushed my chair back slowly, murmured something about needing to check my notes before the meeting. In the study, behind a locked door, I stood breathing hard, trying to make sense of what I just felt. Was it just nerves? Was I overthinking because of all the stress? I wanted to believe that. But deep down, deep where the instincts live, I knew this wasn't the first time. The headaches after our anniversary dinner last fall, the violent stomach cramps during our beach trip in March, blamed on bad seafood, the unexplained drowsiness before my last client presentation, when Clara had insisted on making me a special smoothie to boost my energy. Every time something critical was on the horizon for me, every time I had a shot at stepping to the next level, something happened to derail me. And Clara was always there, with her comforting hands, her gentle concern, her soft assurances that it was just bad luck. I sat down heavily on the edge of the couch, hands shaking a little. If I was right, if she was doing this deliberately, it was too big to process all at once. I needed proof, not just gut feelings. So I made a plan. At the brunch we were supposed to attend that afternoon, a gathering with some of my potential clients and their spouses, I would watch, I would listen, and I would not, under any circumstances, let her hand me anything to eat or drink. The brunch was hosted at a gorgeous estate on the edge of town, the kind of place with endless gardens and a driveway that curved like a movie set. Everyone was there already when we arrived. Laughter, champagne glasses clinking, the smell of grilled seafood hanging in the air. Clara slipped effortlessly into social mode. The perfect wife, the perfect hostess. I played my part too. Charming, relaxed, pretending that every nerve in my body wasn't screaming. She tried, subtly, handing me a glass of mimosa just as I was deep in conversation with a senior VP, pushing a plate of oysters closer to me with a teasing smile, sliding a cupcake onto my plate. "You have to try this one, it's your favorite." Each time, I dodged gently, took a different glass, picked from a platter someone else offered, pretended to be too full for dessert. And each time, I caught it, the slight flash of frustration in Clara's eyes. Gone almost instantly, but there, after the third time, she pulled me aside under pretense of needing a minute together. Her hand curled around my forearm, too tight to be affectionate. "You're being weird today," she said, low and sweet. Her nails dug into my skin. "Just tired." I said easily, "Big day." She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Neither of us said what we were really thinking. Not yet. By late afternoon, after hours of keeping my guard up, I was exhausted, emotionally drained, mentally fraying at the edges. Clara suggested we go home early. I agreed. The car ride was silent, except for the hum of the tires on asphalt, a tension thick enough to choke on. When we pulled into the driveway, she didn't move to get out right away, just sat there, staring straight ahead. "You don't trust me anymore, do you?" she asked softly. The words hit harder than any scream could have. I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to answer yet. Instead, I said the only thing I could. "I just need some space to think." She didn't argue, just got out of the car and walked into the house without looking back. And in that moment, for the first time, I realized that I was more afraid of staying than of leaving. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay awake in the dark, listening to Clara's breathing from the other side of the bed, feeling like I was sharing the room with a stranger. At 3 a.m., I got up, went down to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, but didn't drink it. Instead, I sat at the table, staring at nothing, letting the silence wrap around me. I had to be smart. I had no proof yet, only suspicion. If I accuse her now without evidence, she'd twist it, make it seem like I was paranoid, unstable, maybe even dangerous. I knew how this worked. I'd seen it happen to other people. I needed a plan. Careful, patient, quiet. So I started with the basics. The next morning, while Clara was out for her yoga class, I searched the house, not like a madman, not tearing through drawers, just carefully, methodically. At first, I found nothing unusual. Receipts, grocery lists, pill bottles, all properly labeled. But tucked in the back of the top shelf in the laundry room, behind a stack of old towels, I found a small brown box. Inside were vials, tiny glass vials. No labels, no markings, just a faint chemical smell that made my stomach twist. I didn't touch them with my bare hands. I knew better. Instead, I used my phone to take pictures, angles from all sides, the serial numbers etched so faintly into glass that they were almost invisible. I put the box back exactly where I found it, wiped the shelf for fingerprints, closed the cabinet quietly. When Clara came home, I was sitting on the porch, pretending to scroll through my phone. She kissed my temple, cheerful as ever, asked if I wanted iced tea, said she was feeling generous today. I smiled, said no thanks. Inside, my heart was a drumbeat against my ribs. Over the next week, I collected more photos, screenshots, recordings of conversations where Clara let small, chilling details slip, things that made sense only if you were listening carefully. I called an old friend from college, Olivia Hart, now a forensic toxicologist working with a private investigation firm. Told her I needed help. Told her I couldn't go through official channels. Not yet. We met 2 nights later at a diner across town. She listened as I laid it all out. The coffee, the sickness, the hidden vials. When I showed her the photos, she paled. "You're not imagining this, Ryan," she said softly. "What you found, it's serious." "How serious?" I asked, barely breathing. She shook her head. Depending on what's inside those vials, it could be criminal. We made a plan. I'd bring her one of the vials, discreetly. She'd run a preliminary analysis in her private lab. Nothing official, no reports filed yet. We needed to know what we were dealing with. That night, while Clara was on a FaceTime call with her best friend upstairs, I slipped into the laundry room again, took one vial, just one, replaced it with an identical empty tube from my workshop downstairs. She wouldn't notice, not right away. The next day, I handed it off to Olivia in the parking lot of a hardware store. And then I waited. 3 days later, she called. Her voice was tight, professional. "Ryan, we need to talk." In person. My stomach dropped. We met at her office late that evening, long after the building had emptied out. She handed me a printout. Compounds I'd never heard of. Long chemical names. Toxicology notes in bold at the bottom. Potential effects: gastrointestinal distress, neurological impairment, organ strain under repeated exposure, potential fatality at high dosages. I stared at the paper, the words blurring. "This isn't just food tampering," Olivia said grimly. "This is deliberate poisoning." I looked up at her, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel crazy anymore. I felt angry, cold, clear. Clara hadn't just been trying to make me sick. She'd been trying to weaken me, break me down slowly, maybe even worse. And she'd been doing it while smiling, while whispering she loved me. I tucked the paper into my jacket. "Thank you," I said. Olivia hesitated. "Ryan, you need to be careful. People willing to go this far, they don't always stop when you catch them." I nodded once. I understood. This wasn't over. Not yet, but it would be soon. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I had the power to end it. The next morning, I woke up before Clara. Lying there, watching the sunlight creep across the ceiling, I felt strangely calm. I'd made my decision. No confrontations, no accusations, just a quiet, surgical end. I dressed carefully, a habit from when life still made sense. Khakis, buttoned down, polished shoes, normal, forgettable. At breakfast, Clara acted like nothing had happened, chattered about her weekend plans. A spa day, maybe some shopping after. She offered me coffee again. "Make it just how you like it," she said, setting the cup in front of me, smiling that same brittle smile. I looked at it, then at her. "Thanks," I said lightly, but didn't touch it. She didn't notice, too busy stirring her own. I watched her fingers, so steady, so sure of themselves. I left the cup untouched on the table when I grabbed my keys. Big day at work. I lied. "See you tonight." She kissed my cheek like a dutiful wife, said, "Love you." I smiled. "I know," and walked out the door, feeling freer with every step. I met Olivia again at her firm. This time, we weren't alone. She called in a favor from a trusted investigator, someone who specialized in sensitive domestic matters. His name was Mason Reed, a man built like a linebacker, with a voice so soft it forced you to lean in just to hear him. We sat in a private conference room. Low lights, thick walls, no chance of being overheard. I laid out everything. The patterns, the illnesses, the recordings, the vial Olivia had analyzed. Mason listened without interruption, then leaned back, steepling his fingers. "You have enough to go to the police," he said finally. "But if you want more than just charges," he tilted his head, studying me, "if you want to make sure she can't spin it, can't slither out on some technicality, we need a confession." I swallowed hard. "How?" A slow smile touched the corners of his mouth. "Patience," he said, "and the right bait." The next 48 hours were a blur of quiet planning. Olivia coached me on how to set up hidden audio and video. Mason helped me script conversations, plant seeds, create opportunities. It had to feel natural. Had to let her think she was still in control. The hardest part? Pretending. Pretending to laugh at her jokes. Pretending not to flinch when she touched my arm. pretending to drink the coffee she made while secretly swapping it for a thermos of black tea I'd brought from work. At night, lying beside her in bed, I stared at the ceiling, willing myself not to move, not to show the anger simmering under my skin. Soon, I whispered to myself. Soon. On Friday, I made my move. Clara was in the kitchen, prepping for a neighborhood potluck. I leaned in the doorway, casual, easy, like any husband about to make small talk. You know, I said, sipping from my safe thermos, I've been feeling so much better lately. She glanced up, knife pausing over a pile of strawberries. Really? She said lightly. Yeah, it's strange. I continued, watching her carefully, almost like someone was making me sick before. She smiled, too wide, too bright. Probably just stress, she said, returning to her slicing. You've had a lot on your plate. I laughed, low and casual. Maybe. Pause. But you know what's funny? I said, leaning a little closer. I had Olivia from work take a look at some supplements I found in the laundry room. Clara's hand jerked slightly. A strawberry rolled off the counter and hit the floor. She bent to pick it up, but I saw it, the flicker of panic before she masked it. Supplements, she repeated, too casually. Yeah, strange stuff, I said lightly. Not the kind of thing you find at GNC. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. I let it stretch, watching her squirm. Then, softly, I added, I guess if someone was slipping that into my coffee, it could have made me really sick. Clara straightened, face pale. I would never, she began. I shrugged. Of course not, I said, voice light. But if someone did, I'd want to know why. Another long silence. She licked her lips, glanced at the window, the door, anywhere but at me. And then, just like that, she cracked. Her shoulders sagged. Her eyes glittered with sudden, desperate tears. I only wanted to slow you down, she whispered. You were pulling away from me, working late, traveling so much. I thought if you stayed home more, if you needed me, you'd remember why you loved me. My blood ran cold. She wasn't sorry. She was sorry she got caught. I kept my face blank, neutral, letting her talk. You weren't supposed to get that sick, she said, wringing her hands. It was just supposed to make you tired, sluggish, dependent. I let her words hang in the air, every one of them captured by the tiny microphone hidden under my shirt collar. Finally, I nodded, as if considering her confession. Thank you for being honest, I said quietly, and I meant it, because now I had everything I needed. The next morning, Clara was still asleep when the knock came at the door. 3 sharp raps. Firm, unmistakable. I watched in the kitchen window as 2 officers in navy jackets waited patiently, hands resting lightly on their belts. She stumbled to the door in her bathrobe, rubbing her eyes. The moment she saw them, everything inside her seemed to collapse. The officers spoke quietly, showed their badges, asked her to come with them. She turned to look at me, eyes wide, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, hands steady around my coffee mug, watching her realize that the game was over. No shouting, no pleading, just the soft click of handcuffs as they led her away, the quiet slam of the front door behind them, and then silence. A silence so deep, so complete, it wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I sank into the chair by the window, let the morning light spill across my face. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel sick, or scared, or small. I just felt free. The weeks that followed moved in a strange, slow rhythm. Detective Vaughn, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and soft voice, kept me updated. The forensic team found enough evidence in Clara's belongings to charge her with multiple counts of attempted poisoning. Notes, prescriptions, schedules detailing when she dosed the coffee, the meals. It was all there, laid out like a twisted diary. When they asked if I wanted to press charges, I didn't hesitate. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth, about drawing a line in the sand that said, "You don't get to break me and walk away." Clara's lawyers tried to spin it. Stress, mental health, misunderstood intentions. But the evidence was undeniable. The recordings, the toxicology reports, the pattern. It didn't matter what pretty words they wrapped it in. She had made her choices, and now she would live with them. The day of the sentencing, I sat alone in the back of the courtroom. I wore a simple navy suit. No tie, just another face in the crowd, blending into the wood panel walls and worn carpet. Clara sat at the defendant's table, smaller than I remembered, paler. She didn't look at me once. When the judge handed down the sentence, for years, no possibility of early release, I felt no triumph, no victory, only a quiet, hollow kind of closure. A door closing with a soft but final click. That night, I went to the old marina just outside the city. It was chilly, the wind carrying the faint scent of salt and oil and with smoke. I found an empty bench at the end of the dock, sat there watching the water ripple under the orange glow of the streetlights. In my pocket, I rolled my wedding band between my fingers. Heavy, smooth, a symbol once full of promises. I stood, walked to the edge of the dock, and without ceremony, I tossed it into the water. It hit with a small splash, barely a ripple, gone, just like the life I thought I had. Later, I bought a small cabin up in the hills north of the city. Nothing fancy, just enough. A porch that caught the morning sun, a fireplace that crackled on cold nights, a garden where I could grow tomatoes and wildflowers and forget the taste of betrayal. I took a job with a local startup, smaller, messier, but real. People who looked you in the eye when they shook your hand, who meant it when they said thank you. It wasn't the life I planned, but it was the life I chose. Sometimes, on clear nights, I sit out on the porch, a cup of strong black coffee in my hand, watching the stars burn against the velvet sky. No bitterness, no anger, just a quiet, steady gratitude for the lessons learned. Not all betrayals end in fire and fury. Some end with a man sitting alone under the stars, stronger than he ever thought he could be. And in the silence between heartbeats, he knows the best revenge is living free.